Today we are driving the new 2024 Subaru Ascent Touring. But as always, let me take you on a brief tour of this car before we get it out on the road. The key fob is really simple to use. You just click the Subaru logo to unlock the car, and let's take a look at this facelifted exterior. This actually was facelifted last year, so we get to enjoy all of the new design changes like this blacked out grille, fully functional vents at the bottom, and these new boomerang looking LED headlights. This new green color also looks amazing in the sun, and the 20-inch alloy wheels look amazing against the side profile. Speaking of the side profile, we have a chrome molding, body side moldings to keep the car safe in the parking lot. You also get chrome door handles, chrome window surrounds, and fully loaded mirrors. The Onyx Edition will get upgraded roof rails, however we do not have that today, and the rear is pretty boring to be honest. Now we do get a lot of space underneath this tailgate, so let's check it out. Although this is not technically class leading, it is very good for something this size. You get 18 cubic feet, a power source, and the seats are super easy to fold down. Now you do have the option to just close the trunk, but you can also close it and lock it like I did right here. And the trunk does close pretty fast. Now let's take a look at the second and third row. These are the two biggest priorities of this Ascent because this is where all the passengers will be on those long road trips. The door panel is pretty nice, pretty simple, and you get Napa leather seats with sliding and reclining. You do get a lot of room back here, your own third zone of climate control, a power source, and a 19 cup holders throughout the whole cabin. You also get a seat back pocket that is pretty big, and getting into the third row couldn't have been easier. This is also one of the best third rows in the class with 5 cup holders total, 2 USB ports, and a good amount of storage. But the USB ports are only on the right side, so that is why you should go for the right side of this Ascent if you're sitting back here. Now let's get out of this third row and see what exactly you get in the front area. Now getting back the seat is pretty easy, you just push it back and the door has a solid thump. Now the door panel on this is a lot more complex. You have memory seat settings, all of your window controls, and some storage down below. And these seats will be Napa leather with heating and ventilating, and these will have 12 ways of power adjusting. Getting in is pretty easy even though it is 8 inches off the ground, and as you can see, first impressions, this is a pretty nice place to be. Let's start it up. Now as you can see, the gauge clusters are pretty dated with a small display in the middle. However, the steering wheel is very nicely leather wrapped and heated, which I think is a great thing. The materials are okay with soft touch material, leather, aluminum, and some wood trim in the center. The infotainment system is the new 11.6-inch display, and you get digital climate controls. You also get a lot of storage in this Ascent, which is great for a family car like this. Now up top here we do have the choice of a digital camera mirror or a normal rear view mirror, which I think is good for a family car like this in case you have a lot of cargo in the back. And we do get a nice panoramic sunroof which does stretch far back into the second row. Now let's go ahead and take this out on the road. Now moving on to the driving portion of this, first impressions in the parking lot, this is a pretty smooth car. The engine has a nice sound to it, not too loud, but not too quiet either. And this is a pretty maneuverable car in the parking lot with a nice feel to the steering. The steering feel always makes a difference, especially in a larger car like this one. So let's go ahead and get it out onto the road. Now we're going to jump right into things with the transmission evaluation right from the start of the video. This is a CVT transmission, which I know is not everyone's favorite, but this one actually mimics the 8-speed automatic. Now this does help with the feel of the CVT, and I honestly was confused because I heard it was a CVT, but it was acting like an automatic transmission, and I later found out that it does mimic the 8-speed. Now you can't feel the shifts, but it just makes a sound to act like it is shifting. Now this is pretty smooth. Overall, it's a CVT, and you do get relatively good fuel economy with this. Not class leading, but a lot better than some other gas cars like the Chevrolet Traverse or the Kia Telluride, etc. Now, it is pretty quiet in this car. We're not going out on the highway, but we will be getting up to some higher speeds on the acceleration test, so I would stay tuned for that. But it is pretty quiet in here, sitting at around 40 miles per hour. I would say that the tires don't make a lot of noise, even though they are the biggest tires that you can buy on this Ascent. It doesn't make a lot of noise, and I honestly noticed not any difference at all compared to the other wheels on a different Ascent and the 18-inch alloy wheels on the Forester that we drove recently. It is pretty straightforward, and I think it's great because it's not always the best thing to have a really loud cabin on the highway when you're trying to sleep on a trip. I don't think that's the best thing. Now, our acceleration test will be coming up, so I'll let you guys get a listen for yourself on how quiet it is. Now, here's our acceleration test, 0 to 70 miles per hour. Let's see what we got. By the way, I love the engine noise in this Ascent. Even though it's the 2.4 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, it still makes a great noise. Now, acceleration is surprisingly brisk for a car with the numbers that aren't the strongest. We have a 2.4 liter Subaru Boxer twin-turbo 4-cylinder engine, making 260 horsepower and 275 pound-feet of torque. These honestly aren't the best numbers if you compare it to other competitors like the Palisade, the Highlander, and Grand Highlander, and well, I would have to say that I would not think that it was only 260 horsepower if I was in this car. Now, this does have a good amount of torque, so it will get up and go. And I did notice that it is pretty jumpy if you have the pedal down pretty far. Now, I just want you to keep that in mind because you will have to get used to the jumpy takeoff, but I think it's okay. Now, as far as the CVT goes, I actually don't mind it. Now, I did notice that you can hear that it is a CVT, but it does do a pretty good job of mimicking the 8-speed automatic like they claim. Now, I also found the same transmission in the Forester, and it did also mimic the 8-speed automatic, which I think is a pretty good idea for a brand only using CVT. Now, this does get very good fuel economy because of this transmission at 20 in the city, 26 on the highway, and 23 combined, which are pretty impressive for an engine like that. Now, as far as the handling, this was actually a pro handling that corner. I did not expect the suspension to be as good as it was. Now, as you might all know, this is a bigger segment. You have a lot of cars, and not all of those cars can handle very well like this Ascent. Now, this isn't like a race car or anything, but I do have to say that this does handle a lot better than any of the other three-row SUVs I've been in. Definitely way better than the Grand Cherokee L, which I recently compared it to, and definitely better than the Telluride, which I have been in before. Now, you do see there are some orange flashing lights displayed on the windshield. I don't know if you just saw that. Please rewind if you want to see that. That was actually the lane keep assist. And I'm super happy that they integrated that onto the head-up display. That's really, really helpful because you don't always want to look down at the gauge cluster to see what is beeping because that would just defeat the purpose of the head-up display. So I am very happy that they integrated the lane change assist into the head-up display. Now the brakes are pretty good. That was not a brake test, but we did have one earlier. Now, it's not the best, but I do have to say there have been worse, there have been better, and this is kind of in the middle. So I think that's a great place to be with this Ascent. Now Subaru is in a great spot with this car because they just facelifted it. They gave it a new 11.6-inch touchscreen. They added a couple more features to this car. So as competitive as the competition will get, this Ascent is not on the top 3, but it is in a great spot for 2024. And I think that is great that Subaru is catching on with their biggest vehicle yet. Now, of course, there will still be competitors out there like the Telluride, the Palisade, and the new Grand Highlander and CX-90. Those will deliver some tough competition, but with what Subaru is doing, they're doing what they always do, and they're just doing what they should be doing, and I think that is really keeping the Ascent going with the sales. Now, this test drive is almost over, so I do want to give a special shout out to Subaru of Ann Arbor for providing this car for us. Now, they're a great dealership. They have a lot of great inventory, including this Ascent. However, this Ascent has been sold because it is a great car. But don't worry, they still have a lot of other Ascents on their lot right now, including this gorgeous green color. Now, I do recommend checking their websites for used inventory because you never know what will pop up there, and there have been some good cars that I could not get my hands on that have popped up on their website. Now, if you're looking for a new Subaru or a new car to buy, I think Subaru of Ann Arbor is a great dealership to go to, and I highly recommend checking them out. Now that is it for the talking part, so I will not be talking until the very end of the video, so just enjoy this part with no talking. Well, that is going to wrap up today's video on driving the new 2024 Subaru Ascent Touring. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.